You are listening to the Football Diehards podcast with your hosts, Justin Lonero and Bob Harris, sponsored by DraftKings. Sign up now using promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Make a first-time $5 deposit, and you'll receive a free $3 ticket.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Justin Lonero, on Twitter at Justin Lonero. As always, Mr. Bob Harris on Twitter at Football Diehard, and our executive producer is on the line this evening, of course, Mr. Kyle Dvorchak on Twitter at FF Kyle the Kid. Gentlemen, it is the 2019 playoffs for the NFL, and as the divisional round, the season just blew by. Mr. Harris, what is good in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Everything is good. I think, I thought the first round of the playoffs, for the most part went as I expected. I think the Ravens were a little surprising in that, maybe more so the Chargers, that they were able to play defense as well. Melvin Ingram was a monster. I thought the Bears, the Eagles games, that 16-15 game, again, being eager for the fantasy-friendly outcomes, that one wasn't so much. But, I thought we lived with the other ones. Deshaun Watson scored well, surprisingly well, given the final score of that game, 21-7. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good first weekend. Mr. Dvorchak, your thoughts?
Yeah, it was fun. I think, interesting. Now we get into the real meat of things. This is where we get all of those high-powered offenses, but still a good round of playoffs nonetheless. I'm still being more of the analytical mind, trying to see things in terms of numbers and not so much feel. Just befuddled by Nick Foles, but it's exciting. Doesn't mean it's not a great story, and certainly will be truly one of the storylines of my sports life so far.
Yes, he's very big, they tell me. So let's move. Look, before we get into the DFS for this week, we've got the Colts and Chiefs and Cowboys at Rams on Saturday, the Chargers at Patriots, Eagles at Saints on Sunday. I want to touch base. The coaching changes have started in earnest. The big news, Dirk Cutter signs on as the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, that might not be the big news. We'll touch on that over the course of the offseason. We'll touch on the head coaches. I thought the Packers hiring Matt LaFleur. There's a trend here, people. We need Sean McVay. Or we need Kyle Shanahan. So we have Matt LaFleur hired by the Green Bay Packers. And a little bit of a surprise to me. That was earlier this week, or Monday, I should say. I guess it's already Tuesday. And then the rest of the moves that came today were Bruce Arians going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which makes some sense once you get past him coming out of retirement. It's turning out the Bucs are having to give the Cardinals a little bit of compensation as you record this on Tuesday night. But in general, it's kind of he's getting the band back together kind of situation. He'll have Byron Leftwich as his coordinator, passing game kind of coordinator. He'll have Harold Goodwin there to coordinate the run. He'll have Clyde Christensen as the quarterback's coach. So no huge surprise there. I think it's a good situation for him. And the other one that was, I think, the more surprising, Cliff Kingsbury, who wasn't that great. Was he 35-40 at Texas Tech, but he did coach an array of quarterbacks. He joins the Arizona Cardinals as the head coach. This is about Josh Rosen, right, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Josh Rosen at length this offseason. He seems like and you hear it over and over. I mean, the talent is through the roof. Is he coachable? Is he going to be is he a guy that can learn? Does he want to learn, or is he stuck on his silver spoon ways from California?
I think that's what you say. I don't think people who know him say that, but
no. I mean, it was a bad year. I mean, we see it all the time. Bumps and bruises, rookie quarterbacks. I mean, from a talent standpoint, he made some terrific throws. He's a work in progress. We all are.
Right. I think he's still look, I'm sorry. I don't get caught up in all the crap. I get caught up in what's going on in the field. And he didn't have a good supporting cast. He didn't have an offensive line. He didn't have a coaching staff that maximized his talents. Yep. So they bring in a Cliff Kingsbury, who has coached Baker Mayfield, Davis Webb, Patrick Mahomes during his time with the Red Raiders. He's worked with Johnny Manziel and Case Keenum over the course of time. Obviously, this is about that great endorsement from Pat Mahomes, who thinks he can be a very good. Thinks the skills translate. Hopefully, the skills include the winning. Kyle, for you, looking at the Matt LaFleur hiring, I've made the joke on Twitter, wow, it only took them 14 games to figure out he had Derrick Henry. So I'm suggesting the Aaron Jones owners might want to be a little patient. But how do you see this relationship? I mean, this is all about Aaron Rodgers. Is this, in your estimation, a good pairing in that regard?
I forget where it was. I forget where I saw this. It was just floating around Twitter. It was an interview with, I believe, like Mercedes Lewis, and he was saying how they would. A play was called by Mike McCarthy, and Aaron Rodgers was like, "No, we're not doing that. You run this route. You run that route." Like, I still feel as though the offense won't be awfully different. It will just have a much higher ceiling, a ceiling that is paired with Aaron Rodgers, as opposed to when Aaron Rodgers isn't making changes. They're pretty often bad. Now I think that sort of cap is completely taken off. I still don't know if it's nothing revolutionary. We saw, like you said, it was 14 weeks to figure out Derrick Henry was the guy. I don't think he's not the next Sean McVay. Not a bold call. He's not going to be revolutionary. I think it just takes the truly uncreative cap that this team had off and opens them up to seeing peak Aaron Rodgers again, which thank God, because I've had so much enough of seeing what we've seen for the past few years from Aaron Rodgers, considering how talented he is.
Right. And I just addressed that, Justin, this desire to get the next McVay, the next Kyle Shanahan. And we're seeing it. Like, I think what's interesting to me is it looks like Mike McCarthy's going to get shut out. We'll see what the Jets do. That's still an opening there. They've talked to Todd Monken. In Cleveland, it looks like it's coming down to Freddie Kitchens and Kevin Stefanski, the Vikings offensive coordinator, briefly. Their interim offensive coordinator. So those two guys in the mix in Cleveland, I would love to see him keep Freddie Kitchens, who is not the second coming of Sean McVay. He's not handsome enough, but he did get the job done. And Denver, it sounds like they're down to Mike Munchak and Vic Fangio, which is interesting. Gary Kubiak would be the offensive coordinator. But just talk a little bit about the trend, the copycat nature of the NFL there, Justin.
Well, you got to, first and foremost, I think you need to be attractive because that helps, right?
It does.
They want you to look like Sean McVay. Unfortunately, Freddie Kitchens does not. Look, I thought that when the Titans moved on from Malarkey, they were going to get away from the smash mouth football and things were going to become, more innovative and creative. And the Titans were one of the more bleak offenses in the NFL. Marcus Mariota's gotten a ton of scrutiny. I'm still very optimistic about his future in the NFL. So I don't think we know enough about Matt LaFleur. Right. I thought it was going to be a beautiful thing that was going to transpire in Tennessee. It did not happen. It kind of, we saw Derrick Henry, not that he was terrific, previously, but he's the guy that they drafted that they wanted. So we'll see. It's kind of, Aaron Rodgers, kind of like LeBron James, right? This is going to be my show. How much coaching can you give to Aaron Rodgers at this point? He's Aaron Rodgers, the coach of the Green Bay Packers.
I think you just called Matt LaFleur Luke Walton. I don't know if he's going to appreciate that.
Right, exactly.
I did see Nate Burleson on Good Morning Football today make a pretty good point of, the teams that, teams he's been around, do you want to be on the team where the coach is the authoritarian or the coach is more of a partner with the players and the quarterback? He kind of likes the idea of a quarterback coach partnership. I think we're seeing that with, Sean McVay.
Yeah,
I don't know if everyone is Sean McVay. And I think, Kyle Shanahan's a little more, to me, of a taskmaster than he is a partner, right? I mean, he seems to be more of that guiding force. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these personalities come together and play out. A lot of these guys are, not as known to us. I have heard a lot about LaFleur not being a pushover, but being a combative guy who pushes back when he wants to push back. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe that's what Aaron Rodgers could use a little bit of.
Sure.
So we'll be looking forward to that. We know what Bruce Arians is. We kind of have expectations. He has a relationship with Jameis Winston, from quarterback camps that he's run in the past. Can he rekindle that success that we saw in Arizona? I mean, he had it's Winston and a pretty good supporting cast, Kyle.
Yeah, I think we saw it. The supporting cast helped both Winston and Fitzpatrick. They're both really, we've talked about it all season, but they gave you incredible upside in DFS every week because you could throw a touchdown to 5 different guys, and that was even with O.J. Howard missing a ton of time throughout the season. He was injured, then he came back, I believe, then he ended the season. But all the weapons are really there. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the running game. That's the one thing, because I think it comes down to if Jameis Winston really has a decent amount of talent, which it seems like he does, I believe Bruce Arians will salvage that, and it will flourish in this offense. I'm really just curious to see what happens with the running back situation. That feels like the one missing piece on this team with Ronald Jones I don't even want to say he played bad because he hardly played at all. But if he can, yeah, exactly. We didn't see a single thing from him really. So if he can play at all, I think his role in this offense, considering what we saw with David Johnson, could be huge. But, the history of running backs who do that little, especially when they're not hurt in their first year, or at least not majorly hurt in their first year, is very bad. But I think that's the one piece I'm really most interested in diving into in the offseason. But I do believe this offense has a lot of upside and maybe has a higher floor now with Bruce Arians hopefully limiting some of the mistakes that we've seen in the past.
All right, we'll jump into the divisional round of the playoffs. The injury issues are not great in these games. There'll be guys that we need to watch a little bit. Hunter Henry returns for the Chargers, or has at least been activated. We'll see what kind of role he could play. Todd Gurley looks like he's well on his way back. Sammy Watkins as well. We'll touch on all those, but basically we are here to chew bubblegum, kick ass, and talk DFS. I don't feel great, so I don't want to kick anybody's ass. I'm fresh out of bubblegum, so the DFS is the remaining option. So we'll start with the first game on Saturday. And look, I kind of like all these games, but the Colts and Chiefs, this is going to be a score-a-palooza. I have this funny feeling. There's reason to believe that's the case. Justin, who do you like in this game?
I like the Colts. I think they're on a heater. I think they have balance. I think, in the run game, I think that they're keeping Andrew Luck upright, which is something he hasn't been accustomed to. What a story he has been. I think we are going to see this weekend, what Andrew Luck is. If when Peyton Manning left, is Andrew Luck potentially the next Peyton Manning for that organization? There's now his opposition is a 23-year-old kid who, you guys were kind of cynical about this season, and Patrick Mahomes. So does he have the stones to, take it to the next level? Arrowhead.
If you have the stones to say that, he has the stones to do that.
The dude throws no-look passes like a street ball. He certainly has the stones. I'll give him, that's the least questionable thing about his game.
Two middle-of-the-road secondaries. Vegas has it at 57. The Chiefs are a 5.5-point favorite. The line has gone up a little bit, but I think the Indianapolis Colts can go into Arrowhead and win this football game. T.Y. Hilton's a little dinged up. I think a lot of it is hinged on him, but there should be some points scored. I do like the Colts overall in this game. Again, I like the balance. I like Marlon Mack getting the football. We love what Eric Ebron has done so far this season. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, losing Kareem Hunt, I think, is going to be huge because, you want to have a semblance of a ground game in the playoffs. And, Williams has been okay, but he's certainly not Kareem Hunt. But I'll take the Colts. I actually like the Colts to go into Arrowhead and win the game.
I don't know. I might disagree. I think Damian Williams has been every bit what Kareem.
Hell yeah, Bob. I was going to say the same thing. We've seen so many teams, right? This year we've seen C.J. Anderson pop off.
Right.
Running backs don't matter.
And I think if you're a dynasty player, you look at the contract that they gave. They have a very affordable piece in that backfield, and it turns out it doesn't matter what his name is. He's going to play pretty well because that kid, Patrick Mahomes, he has stones. Kyle, from a DFS perspective, top play in this game, are you going Mahomes over? Look, I think the key that we see a lot, for me, the Colts offensive line and defense seem to be the factors that have me agreeing with Justin in terms of the outcome of this game. That and the Chiefs' horrible history in the playoffs in their own stadium, which will get me much love from the Chiefs fans. But how do you feel about the prospects of the key players in this one, the quarterbacks?
I think the prospects are both great, and for that reason, I don't think their projection will be of merit to go Patrick Mahomes over Andrew Luck for that single reason of the price difference being, I believe it's it's 800 difference. You're paying $7K for Mahomes on DraftKings, whereas you're just paying $6,200, despite us knowing that the opposing quarterbacks in shootouts, their correlation coefficient of their points is super high. If both teams are going to score a lot, both quarterbacks are going to play well, and I think for that reason, you just take the savings, and you can still run it back with Kelsey on the other side or Hill on the other side. It's just that take the savings at quarterback. It lets you do a lot more on a slate now stacked with great players as opposed to last week where it was the exact opposite. So for that reason, I'll probably be going Luck. Guys I'm looking at, Dontrell Inman. And by the way, everybody on the Colts, I believe, every single player on their 53-man roster did not practice. I don't think Eric Ebron, T.Y. Hilton,
14 guys.
Inman. Yeah, exactly.
14 guys on the injury.
For now, this will come out Wednesday morning as of then, don't read too much into it. We've seen the same exact thing with T.Y. Hilton for, I think, like over
and
a month
Ebron.
now. Yeah, and Ebron.
Yes.
Both for like over a month now. That's what you do with players when you need them for the playoffs. One extra practice isn't going to make the difference, but if it flares up an ankle sprain, that will make the difference. So you rest those players for early practices.
T.Y. Hilton, if he does not practice all week and plays as usual and productively, it would not surprise me at all. So
absolutely. So
I tend to agree with all of that. We look at the Cowboys and Rams on Sunday night. It's a Rams home game, although we'll see how that crowd plays out. The Rams rushing defense, 23rd in the league, not that great. Ezekiel Elliott is the Cowboys offensive line, closer to full strength, although not quite there. A couple guys beat up, as we mentioned. Allen Hurns done for the season. Cole Beasley expected to play. Talked to Calvin Watkins of The Athletic tonight. He expects Cole Beasley to be fine. Blake Jarwin a little bit dicey. But in general, look, you're focused on the top tier of guys, and maybe that extends to Michael Gallup, Justin.
It might, that we've seen some rapport with Dak Prescott, and out goes Allen Hurns, which is an awful, awful injury. I think you're going to need something outside of Amari Cooper and Ezekiel Elliott. Look, if you're going to beat this Rams team, you're going to do exactly what their identity is, and that's give Zeke the ball 35 times and run it right down their throat. The Rams have a damn good secondary with Marcus Peters, John Johnson, Nickel Roby-Coleman. I mean, PFF has them as a top 7 pass defense. So stick to what you know. Stick to what you know. Go into L.A. and run the football down their throat. And, I think it's going to be a close football game. I said it a couple of weeks ago. I like the Dallas Cowboys to come out of the NFC. They just have the ingredients of a playoff football team. So I will pay right up for Ezekiel Elliott at 8,200. We know, gentlemen, Ezekiel Elliott is one of the best running backs I've seen in my life so far. Is Amari Cooper going to be used properly? It's been sporadic, but I think, Bob, what you said, Michael Gallup, somebody's going to have to step up, outside of Amari Cooper and Zeke. And it could be Gallup.
Right.
Give me the Dallas Cowboys in L.A. As far as the Rams are concerned, whether they're going to win or not is the health of Todd Gurley. I think if they're going to win, it's going to be predicated based on Todd Gurley's health. There are some wide receivers in tournaments that you're going to want to take a look at. Brandon Cooks, another 1,000-yard season out of the polished Brandon Cooks, who's 24 years old, feels like he's been in the NFL 7 years. I think he's a great tournament play at his price, 5,600. And Robert Woods feels like the safer play. In cash games. So that should be a good football game. I think it's going to be tight. I don't know if there's going to be fireworks, but I do like the Cowboys.
Yeah, what are they, like 7-point dogs too? So there you go. For now, maybe that changes. I talked to Joe Curley from the Ventura County Star also this evening. He thought it was a little worrisome. Todd Gurley, by the way, was limited officially on Tuesday, expected to work again on Wednesday, seems to be on track to play. But Joe Curley thought it was worrisome to him that they were saying, "Hey, we're going to play C.J. Anderson some, even if Gurley's back." My guess is that goes until Gurley is back, right? I mean, look, if Gurley's on the field being productive, 21 touchdowns this year, great in pass protection, but that's the thing for Anderson, also good in pass protection. So I want to ask you, Kyle Dvorchak, how do you feel about the receiving core for the Rams, in particular Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods in this game?
Yeah, it's been other than I believe week 17, which is always a bit of a strange week to really take too much data from. Most of the Rams did play full games. I think Woods left in the first half, but that's actually where most of Cook's scoring came from. So I want to say, my mind says, Woods left. You can't really take too much into what Cooks is doing, but he was doing with Woods on the field, so he did have a great week in week 17. But I still think the overall volume has consistently been in favor of Robert Woods. And also, working almost entirely on the outside, Cooks is going to see a lot of Byron Jones potentially. That's not anything I want to get into because Byron Jones is really good. Justin, you mentioned how incredible this secondary is. I want to look towards Josh Reynolds, is a guy I really like to get into just because he's so cheap. We want to find cheap ways to attack good offenses. At 4,500, all he has to do is score one touchdown, and that's pretty much the way I'm going to go. So I'm mostly going Robert Woods, a high floor, and I still think high ceiling because of the offense play, and Josh Reynolds, at least a high value play on the week. And I'm mostly going to be fading Cooks.
The Road Warriors, the Chargers, heading for New England, Foxborough Stadium, early kickoff for them, and this has not been a big deal. They don't seem to care. Boy, the way they played defense last week, Justin, I thought very impressive against Baltimore. The Patriots, not necessarily the Patriots we've seen, but look, they got a first-round bye. They're in the playoffs. Gronk not playing up to his usual standards. How do you see this one playing out, and who are the DFS prospects you're after in this one?
I think it's going to be a damn good football team. A good game. They were outstanding on the road this season, the Chargers.
Undefeated.
And the Ravens go into L.A. and win, and then they fly cross-country, and they beat Baltimore. I mean, like you said, now the Patriots and the Chargers, top three PFF has them in terms of their secondary, between Stephon Gilmore, Jason McCourty, and on the other side you have Derwin James and Casey Hayward. This could be a game that's won on the ground. Now, the Patriots can't stop anybody on the ground, so you're going to want Melvin Gordon, who's also dinged up a little bit. You're going to beat the Patriots. You're going to beat them on the ground. And I could, just like Ezekiel Elliott, I would feed Melvin Gordon a great deal. I do like Julian Edelman, but again, these are two. This should not be a shootout by any stretch. It's going to be cold. There's a chance of some snow. I can see it being a low-scoring game. But I do like the Patriots on top. Give me some Julian Edelman. Give me some James White. James White is I say focal points of the offense. Well, he certainly is. And this is a game where the script looks 5-6 receptions for James White, sub 5K price tag. He's been a model of consistency, and it kind of runs through him. It's been a sad story for Rob Gronkowski. Not a lot of love there, but who knows? It's tough to get into the mind of Bill Belichick. I see it as maybe 27-24 type of game, but the Patriots will come out on top. Tom Brady owns Phillip Rivers, historically 7-0 and 2-0 against the playoffs against Rivers. So he has him. He owns a lot of people.
Dive in, Kyle.
Yeah, I think I don't want to have any part of the Patriots offense outside of Julian Edelman, who has just been funneled targets since coming back from a suspension early in the season. Gronk has been targeted 10 times in his last 3 combined games. Like, he's not Gronk anymore. You can't call him Gronk anymore. You have to call him Robert Gronkowski, and you have to say it in a stern voice because he's just a guy named Robert at this point. When you look at how much he's 46.
Hey, I'm a guy named Robert.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're
in better shape.
You're a fit guy, just like Robert Gronkowski is.
You're in better shape.
Guys who can lift some weights, go for a jog. That's about Gronk's capacity at this point, I think. When you look at the prices, he's 4,600, which is basically the end of the top tier of tight ends. You got Kelsey at 7K, Ertz at 5,700, Ebron 55, then Gronk 46. You go below 3K after that. And Gronk has only had 2 games of 20-plus points. You look at the guys below him. Gerald Everett's had one of those. Blake Jarwin nearly had a 40-point game. You're really not – all you're doing is raising your floor. And I'm assuming a lot of us, if not all of us, are playing tournaments at this point. I don't really care if my floor is raised. Great. Gronk doesn't have an incredibly high ceiling relative to the guys who are priced below him, and those guys aren't crazy ceiling guys either, so it just makes me want to either pay all the way up more or just punt the position and hope I get a Gerald Everett 2-touchdown or a Blake Jarwin 10-target game or whatever. I'm just not paying for Gronk. Edelman's a guy I love. He's been funneled targets, and then outside of that, I could get into some Sony Michel because I think, like Justin said, we could see this game dominated on the ground. And right now, New England's about a 4-point favorite, depending on where you're looking. If they do hit that spread, if they're leading by closer to a touchdown for a lot of the game, we could get a lot of carries for Sony Michel. That's an interesting play, especially I don't think he'll be super high owned. Outside of that, Chargers, I'm interested in Mike Williams' highest touchdown rate in the NFL, given any reasonable amount of targets. He scored 10 touchdowns on I think 66 targets, I believe. It's absurd, and I think if you have a chance to get such a high variance guy like that in tournament lineups, I'd love to do it. But outside of that, it's the lowest total of the week, I believe, and it's not particularly close. It's been going down as well. I think it dropped 2 points. All the other totals, 49-point total for the game we just talked about. For Indy, Kansas City, 57, and for the final game, 50 points. This one's 45.5 and has been dropping. I just don't want exposure to this game with so much goodies in the other games.
Mike Reese from ESPN reported on Gronk today. He talked to a defensive coach who faced the Patriots in 2018 who said, we didn't game plan for him, we didn't double him. Our plan was to hit him early, stop him early, because if you redirect him, he can't do a damn thing. That's basically been the approach, and it's worked. It's been very effective for Gronk. So jumping into the last game, the Eagles going up against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints offense down the stretch wasn't all it had been early on. What are your expectations, Kyle, going into this one?
I think we could see either there are two outcomes, because right now the spread, I think, opened at 10, went down 2 points to 8. So even if it goes down another point to the critical number of 7 for a touchdown, that's still a huge favorite. That's still an incredibly large favorite. So if that happens, I love the running game, and I love going a lot of Mark Ingram if I believe that's going to happen, because I think the carries have been pretty much split when you look at I believe it is weeks 5 through 16, so the games where both Kamara and Ingram played together. Kamara only outcarried him by about 1 carry per game. He was still the clear target guy, but his targets also went down. Kamara is only a bet on efficiency at this point for moderate volume, not bell cow volume like we saw in the first 4 games, where I can just go cheap, get Ingram, and get exposure to a great offense. If they get a lot of red zone trips, they get to run the ball a lot with a heavy lead. That's all chances for Mark Ingram to have a great game, and he's only 5,200. One other guy I'm looking at from this team is Ted Ginn in his first game back, and really his only game back. He didn't play week 17. They rested him because it's week 17. Who cares? He went 5 catches on 8 targets for 74 yards. He also led the team in air yards that week, I believe, so he was back to usual Ted Ginn things on this offense. That's a great high variance play, and I don't think a play a ton of people are going to be on. And that also takes me completely out of Traquan Smith territory. It's completely off of him. If you wanted to take a deep shot on this team, it's Ted Ginn for me. And then for the Eagles, the biggest guy I'm looking at is Zach Ertz. His price fell from 6,700 to 5,700 from last week to this week after an obviously bad matchup with the Bears. They still won, which is incredible, but it felt very obvious that he was going to struggle, or at least they were going to game plan against him, unlike Rob Gronkowski. This week, he's still going to be the focal point of the defense. I would imagine he's clearly the best receiver on this team. I just don't think the defense is nearly as good. They're better though, and that's one thing I wanted to point out. Over the second half of their season, their defense got incredibly just improved. I think it was a number of things, but most importantly, it was just they had a lot of shootouts early in the season. So when you're scoring a lot of points, the other team scores a lot of points. And then the second half of the season, we saw a lot of what we saw last season, in that their defense was pretty oppressive, and they didn't have to score a lot. So here it is. Over the second half of the season, excluding week 17, they only allowed 14.6 points on average, and at home, they allowed 20.7 points on average throughout the season. So I think they're at the right side of both of those splits, second half of the season and at home. That am I just a fool for not believing in the magic that is Nick Foles, or do I see a bad matchup against a team that I didn't score a ton last week and now goes into another incredibly disadvantageous situation in a game where they're incredibly unfavored? Is that it? Do I have all the right data points, and will it just not matter, Justin?
Week 11, Drew Brees absolutely gashed the Philadelphia Eagles. And by the way, both of these teams have bottom of the barrel secondary as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you can't run the football on the Saints this season, but the Eagles don't have a running game. Hey, and they haven't since they lost Jay Ajayi, as far as I'm concerned. Look, we love Drew Brees at home, and we always have. And we certainly like Drew Brees in the playoffs. One thing we can give credit to as far as the Eagles, historically, hot teams going into the playoffs have had success, and I've seen it happen to the Patriots with those Giants teams. So it's a good story. Whether they can bring this into New Orleans, I don't know. We saw what Allen Robinson was able to do at Soldier Field. I think that Alshon Jeffrey is certainly in play. Obviously, Marshawn Lattimore is damn good if you want to discount. 14 targets for Golden Tate over the last couple of weeks. You know, Golden Tate is Golden Tate. He's a 90 reception wide receiver as we know him. I like Alvin Kamara. I think he's a model of consistency. He's going to be heavily involved in this game plan. I think the Saints are going to roll the Eagles. There's going to be some points scored. As far as diving into the sea of mediocrity, I mean, we're not going to fool around at tight end this week. I think it wouldn't behoove any of us to do that. It's going to be Zach Ertz, or it's going to be Travis Kelce. So I do like the Saints at home. I think, obviously, if you want to pay way down at quarterback, Nick Foles is your guy. Give me some Nick Foles on the cheap. The Saints are going to move on.
I think this might be a little bit. I think the Saints could boat race. I think the Saints could just get out and jump out to an early lead, which is great news for all of us, because we all want to see Nick Foles trying to play from behind, using those receivers downfield. I feel like this is a Saints game. Defense has been dominant at times, as Kyle mentioned, especially at home. I don't think that Philadelphia's defense has been as bad as we think it is, and they can get pressure on the pass rush. That's going to be a key thing. But in the end, it's going to be all Saints for me. I'm leaning heavily in that direction, and from a DFS side, that's probably the direction I'm gonna go with it. I like the guys. Look, I think, like Kyle says, if you're going with one outlier, it's going to be Ted Ginn in this one on the Saints. And on the Eagles, I think you could go with any number of guys. I think anyone's capable of cropping up, and it's more a matter of what your price and roster construction is. So There we have that. All right, guys. Well, any final thoughts, Justin, on any of these games?
Justin, give me a defense. We never talk about defense in these shows.
As much as I like the New England Patriots at home, I'm going to go with those road warrior Chargers. I mean, they've been fantastic on the road, and once again, they are on the road. Their production has been about double on the road as it has been at home, and 3 touchdowns on the road, twice the amount of sacks, 30 sacks on the road. Give me the Chargers, 2,400. People are going to think that they're, going to Gillette, which is obviously a tough place to play. They're stacked on defense. It's as simple as that. So that's going to free up some money. 3,300 for the Saints up top. Not going to go there. I'm comfortable with the Chargers as much as any of these teams. So I will take the Los Angeles Chargers on the road at New England.
I'd like to jump in there. And I feel like, at some point, I should have been saying all the things I was saying about Khalil Mack. I should have been saying about Melvin Ingram. I mean, he's been phenomenal. Their personnel packages, thanks to him, thanks to his versatility. So I like that. Kyle, last thoughts on defense from you?
Yeah, one underrated defense I'm looking at, because I think if you're paying up for the Saints at 3,300, we talked about how there's Vegas thinks they're going to roll the Eagles. We think they're going to roll the Eagles. 3,300, I think they're the obvious chalk defense for a reason. Another contrarian defense, like Justin mentioned, I'll be going with is the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have a good matchup at home, at least. When you look at their home road splits this season, they've averaged 11.9 DK points at home to 4.6 in their road games. And also, I think a cheeky stack you go with there is Tyreek Hill. If he's returning punts and he takes one in the house, that's a clean 12 points right there. And that's the super high variance. It's not going to hit more than once a season, but if it does, you could be a very rich person move. And that's that's the move we all want to make, is that 1% outcome that scores you all the money. So I think that's a defense, if I'm not going chalk, I'd love to get into.
All right, Justin, wrap us up, buddy.
Well, of course, this show is brought to you by DraftKings. Season-long leagues are over. You want to go to DraftKings, you use our promo code DIEHARDS, DIEHARDS. Throw in $5, and we'll get you a free ticket. And, we're going to be rolling all off-season, gentlemen. Football, like Bob says often, is 365, so there's plenty of content to talk about. But, again, we're brought to you by DraftKings. Football Diehards, head over to the website. And, we'll catch you guys next week.
Yeah, that is the end of the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure if you want to get all of your Die Hards Pod updates, as well as get injury news type stuff, because I know we talked about Hunter Henry last week, didn't actually play. So it would be nice for you if you followed us. Find me at FFKyleTheKid, find Justin at Justin Lonero, and Bob at Football Diehard. That is it. Everyone, good luck this week, and thanks for tuning in.